All right, we are good to go. So good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the first Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force meeting of the town of Aurora. I'm Mike Drund, I'm the town clerk, and I'll kick off the meeting in absence of a chair, which we will appoint in just 1 second. So procedural notes, this meeting will be held electronically as per section 19.1 of the town's procedure bylaw as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. And we'll get right into it. Number 2, appointment of the chair. Is there a member of the task force that's interested in being the chair? Well, not everyone at once now.
Come on, Nur, you can do this.
No, just for you guys, normally with the new committee, those on council would like to take a step back so that, those residents can take leadership and ownership of the group. So I'm not going to nominate anyone because I don't want that to mean anything. So you guys can go ahead and nominate somebody.
Okay, I'll go first. I nominate Mark.
I second Mark.
Oh boy.
I should ask, Mark, is that something you're comfortable doing?
Not at all.
I'm here to help. I can certainly help you guide you through anything that we might encounter here.
As a salesperson, negotiation is something that I do work on. So I am willing to take on the vice chair role if somebody steps up for the chair.
I say, Nur, come on, you can do this, Nur. I can see you doing this.
All right.
What do you think? What do you say?
I mean, if there's nobody else that wants to take on the role, then I'm happy to step into that, but I also am happy to step back and give space to others on the call as well to take on that.
Well, this is a rotating role, am I correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so there you go.
I've never done it. I don't know what to do, so I just want to watch tonight.
I also have no idea what to do. But is anybody else, Fiona or Trisha or Keenan, interested in trying out this role for the first year?
Keenan is just trying to familiarize himself with Zoom.
I mean, I have no doubt that he can do both things.
Maintain the order.
Oh, you're on mute, Keenan. I don't know if that's.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not the most comfortable doing that position at the moment. I kind of just like to watch, see what's going on, and then
Well,
okay,
I guess let's.
Okay,
Okay, I'll second Nor. Second Nor.
I think Trisha was. Were you going to say something, Trisha?
No, Councillor Kim seconded you. You're it.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
you do a great job.
All right.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that? I don't want.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right.
We did send out a chair script yesterday. If
Okay. So
if you wanted to check that out, it was in Samantha's email about 5 o'clock yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Pull
that was
up.
moved by May and seconded by Councillor Kim. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Madam Chair,
Excellent.
I will turn it over to you now to ask for the vice chair, which I think Mark has graciously said he would accept if that is still on the table.
Mark?
Oh, I didn't realize that question was to me. If it is still on the table, then yes, I would accept vice chair.
Excellent. And so, Madam Chair, just a mover and a seconder for that motion.
Do I have to say something? Sorry.
Just ask for a mover and a seconder.
Can I have a mover and a seconder for that motion? May is the mover, and I see Keenan as the seconder.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then all in favor? And all opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my hand up for in favor.
That's no problem. Now, as chair, excuse me.
Procedural
Yeah,
question.
Oh, sorry.
a procedural question. If I'm involved in the motion, do I still vote or not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
And okay, so now we're under the approval of the agenda. So Madam Chair, if you would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
All right. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by May. Seconded by Councillor Kim. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Do I have to say I'll call the vote? All in favor, opposed, that carries?
Perfect, except just
Okay.
pauses for, pause for in favor and then opposed, but
Okay.
yeah, that's excellent.
I can try that again if you want. I feel like I'm in theater right now and
Oh, you're
reading
doing
out
great.
my script. Obviously, I
You're
don't
doing
have much
great.
experience in that.
Wonderful.
Okay. Were there any oppositions to the agenda? Just to give a moment to everybody there. Okay, so that carries.
Awesome. And then one last procedural thing, any declarations of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. This, just to provide a very brief overview, pecuniary interest is a financial interest in any of the items on tonight's agenda. Seems pretty unlikely to me that anyone would, but at every council, GC, committee, task force meeting, we ask the question. So Madam Chair, if you would just ask if anyone has a pecuniary interest.
Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
Great, seeing none. Now, there are no minutes at this point. There will be minutes for the next meeting, but not at this point. And the only delegation is me to do a bit of an orientation for the task force. So I'll just share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the advisory committee and task force orientation slideshow of 2018 to 2022. We will provide this to members, and we'll put it online so anyone watching on the stream can also see it as well. So this is just a brief agenda of what we're going to look at tonight, just the roles of advisory committees and everyone involved, members, chair, staff, how the public interaction works, some procedural issues. We do keep this isn't like a GC or council meeting that you may have watched. They're a lot more procedurally heavy. We're very informal at the committee level. We want to give everyone's perspective. We don't want anyone to feel stressed about, breaking rules and things like that. So we'll just do a couple of minor procedural things. The local board's code of conduct, also nothing to really get too worried about there. I'll explain that. And then some just general do's and don'ts that we tell committee members. So what is an advisory committee or task force? Council may establish ad hoc advisory committees to provide opportunities for members of the public to have input in the decisions of their town. So that's straight from our policy. And although council itself has never, at least since I've been the clerk, has never appointed a task force, I spoke with the mayor. I think we generally agree that a task force and advisory committee are along the same lines. We're not going to make too many distinctions between the two. So you'll see a lot of things that we tell our advisory committees that we're going to tell the members of the task force this evening. Role of the advisory committees. Advisory committees and task force are an important tool for civic engagement. They provide a venue to facilitate formal public input on programs and ideas and assist enhancing the quality of life in the community. They also provide recommendations and advice on specific areas of municipal service delivery and policy. And they fulfill this role by formal meetings. The word formal is to be taken lightly. It's not that formal as you'll see, but it is formal in the sense that the advice, there's minutes of the meetings which will go on the council agenda. I'll get into that a bit more in a second. So role of the members. Members are selected to provide expert advice to staff on policy and service delivery in specific areas. Comments are summarized in minutes that are presented to general committee. And that's what I was just speaking about. There's an advisory committee minutes section on general committee minutes, general committee agendas. And so council will see the minutes of the meeting. And now that we are web streaming all of our committees, they can choose to, if they're not watching currently, they can follow up with the video as well. And so members should participate fully by freely expressing their views on the topic, actively listening to fellow members, town staff, and the public, and respecting different opinions. So role of the chair. Each committee task force has a chair to help ensure equal participation of all members, ensure respectful debate, and ensure effective and efficient meetings. This is all stuff that I'm here to help with. You know, I know from my council experience, and can generally these things sort of happen as on their own. They're, Madam Chair, you don't need to do anything extra to facilitate these. It's just a friendly discussion with among a group here. That's generally how they always work out. So if there are any questions, though, of course, feel free to reach out to me. It is also the role of the chair to maintain order and preserve the decorum of the meeting, rule on all procedural matters, receive and submit votes to motions that don't contravene the rules of procedure. I will let you know if I see anything that contravenes the rules of procedure. Pretty unlikely, I'd say, but I will certainly let you know. Decline to put to a vote motions that don't or aren't allowed. I haven't come across one yet in 4 years, but I guess you never know. And announce the results of the vote on motions as so carried or defeated. Each staff or each committee or task force is assigned with 2 staff. So committee coordinator, that is me in this case. I'm the secretary to the committee, and the staff liaison is Tasha. The committee coordinator, so I'm responsible for preparing and distributing agendas and minutes and providing procedural advice. I also assist committees in adhering to practices that allow for effective and efficient decision-making within the mandate of the committee, which is basically a catch-all to say, any questions at any time about the task force, I'm happy to answer them and provide some guidance. And the staff liaison is responsible for bringing forward issues for discussion within the mandate of the committee and reporting to general committee on the recommendations of the task force. And just as a note, staff, the only body that can direct staff is council. So while there's ideas here, and we're certainly here to listen to the ideas of the task force, anything concrete that maybe involve funds or that would be a policy direction, we have to go to council to have their blessing to go forward with it. Into the procedural issues. So the meetings follow the town's procedural bylaw fairly loosely, I'd say. Again, it's a friendly discussion. Meetings, we try to keep meetings to 2 hours at a maximum we can. We very much appreciate the time of the members of the task force here, certainly, and we don't want to push our luck with that, so we do want to keep it at 2 hours at like I said, a maximum. And agendas are prepared by the Legislative Services Division, which is my team. Members may add items for discussion, provided that they're within the mandate of the committee. So if there's ever something that you want to discuss at an upcoming meeting, just shoot me an email and we'll be happy to add it probably under the informational items heading of the agenda, depending on what it is. But please feel free to get in touch at any time. And members discuss issues and pass motions to recommend a course of action to council or express support for a policy or service approach. Minutes of the meetings will be created by me. I will then, and they include fairly normal minutes. They include a summary of the discussion levels and maybe get into how the committee as a whole, no individual comments, but how the committee as a whole felt about a certain issue. And then as soon as I'm finished with the minutes, I circulate them to the chair and members of the committee to make sure that they're accurate. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the minutes will go on a future general committee agenda to be received for information by council. And any recommendations of the committee will be in a staff report from Tasha or I to general committee. And we'd always let you know when those reports are going forward. So the local board's code of conduct, it's a brand new thing. At the start of this term, the provincial government made it law that each municipality has to have a local board's code of conduct. Just for reference, so there's 2 codes of conduct. There's the local boards and there's the council code of conduct. The council code of conduct, which Councillor Kim knows, is 38 pages and the local boards one is 6. And I say that to illustrate that the local board's code of conduct is much less stringent on the rules, much more relaxed. It's more along the lines of, I guess I'll say I've never even seen anything close to a violation of the local board's code of conduct. And so it was sent to you yesterday. If you have questions at the end of the presentation or at any time, please feel free to let me know. And just some do's and don'ts here on providing advice to the whole community of Aurora, listening attentively and being open and expressing your opinions and ideas freely, but also respectfully. And then don't focus on your own agenda, criticize other members, council members, decisions, staff, or the public, or discuss matters where council has made a final decision that are not related to the committee's terms of reference. This is a form I believe our staff have sent to you. I think a few of you have actually returned it, so I appreciate that. It's just a acknowledgement that your name will appear in the minutes and other areas on our website. But we won't give out your cell phone number, email address, or those sorts of things. But it just is an acknowledgement that that some of your personal information may appear in the minutes and on the website. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And that concludes my presentation. I'll just stop sharing. And all right, just seeing a question. Does the term committee include council and staff? The term committee or task force in this case, I know I said committee 10 or 15 times there. I apologize already. The term committee includes council, the councillor, and the members. It does not include staff. We are just we're resources of the committee. We're here to help, here to facilitate discussions, improve, and provide resources where we can, and just make sure that the committee has everything they need to move forward with the business of the task force, of course. Right. Is there any other questions to my presentation?
I was just wondering, you were mentioning that I guess yourself would be kind of creating reports to present to general council. Is that something that happens on a regular basis, or is it just as like recommendations come up that need to be shared in that format?
It would be as recommendations come up that need to be shared. For instance, from tonight's meeting, well, actually, there will be a report from tonight's meeting about the terms of reference, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have a meeting that there's a report coming to council. Maybe we have a meeting to talk about something that doesn't require a report to council. Mm-hmm. So it's really when the committee wants to move forward with an initiative, that's when we would likely see the report to general committee.
Okay, thank you.
Problem. Okay.
So just to clarify, so if there's an initiative that I want, it comes directly to you first before it's been presented to the committee. Am I correct?
In that case, I would email me and ask me to put the initiative on the agenda. And then, so then the committee will have a chance to discuss it. And then Tasha and I will take that forward and see what we can do about whether we can go to council with that, whether there's some other way to deal with it. So I think that's how we'd like to handle it, is to have an idea from the committee, but to have an idea from a task force member, to have the full task force support it before it goes anywhere to council.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, Madam Chair, if you could just ask for a motion to receive the presentation.
Let me pull up my script here. Okay, is it may I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, my screen. I can't see anybody.
Oh. We may have a frozen chair, which is gonna, of course, right?
Can I have a mover?
Oh, she's back.
Oh, she's back.
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still moving and you guys were still moving and nobody was putting their hand up, so I was a little confused, but okay, I don't know what part I froze at, but may I have a motion to receive the comments of the delegation?
Sure.
Okay, moved by May, seconded by Fiona. Thank you. Any questions or comments for the delegate? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And opposed? All right, that carries.
Excellent. So I guess we'll move along then to.
Hey, Mike, before we go along, can you provide can you forward your presentation to everybody in terms of what you just presented?
Yes, absolutely. I will forward it, and I'm also going to put it. We'll attach it to the agenda that's online.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I will forward that just at the end of the meeting, just to if that's all right with you, Councilor Kim, just to keep things moving. All right, so the only matter for consideration on the agenda tonight is the task force terms of reference. So this is a document that we'll take to council on the January 12th GC to get their confirmation that that the terms of reference are correct. But we did want to give the task force members a chance to speak to it. So I guess where in just a moment, this will be the time where I get to start talking or stop talking and start listening, because that's really the listening aspect is really what Tasha and I are here for. We want to listen to the perspectives of the task force members on what the municipality can do to fight systematic racism, which we know exists. We know systematic racism exists. It exists in the town, it exists in the region, the province, the country. So we certainly, and I'll just say that we certainly don't expect to solve all the issues tonight, or even for any of the ideas to be fully thought through or anything like that. We just want to hear from the perspectives of the members of the task force about what they think or what you think the municipality can do to help against the fight in systematic racism and just anything in general in the town. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair, to take any comments or questions on the item.
Just to clarify with you, Mike, are we discussing like comments on the terms of reference specifically? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And just if there's any ideas on early, like I said, very preliminary ideas, they don't need to be fully thought through, but on anything that the municipality can do to help, or anything you'd like to see in the terms of reference. Fairly broad. I think a member can feel free to go in any direction they'd like to here, just to help us get started, I guess.
All right, so I will open it up to the task force members to share any comments.
Okay, so I have a suggestion. How about maybe we work with YRP in the sense of seeing what their initiatives are, because they have a really great task force on the same issues. And maybe we could work with them, or maybe meet with them and see where they go, and then that can kind of build our committee. Any thoughts from anyone?
And by YRP, I assume you're referring to York Region Police?
Yeah. I do know there used to be he's now superintendent, Ricky Verapin, who I do know very well. Ricky's extraordinary when it comes to race relations. He's run the task force for York Region for many years. He's now become a superintendent. So just a suggestion, sorry.
Oh, I see Tasha has her hand up.
Yep, I know Ricky very well as well, because he is part of the York Region Municipal Diversity and Inclusion Group, and he's very valuable in all aspects. So yes, I know him very well. Does an amazing job.
Yeah.
May?
I think it'd just be a great guide for all of us, only because Ricky also comes from the same background as I do. In fact, we grew up on the same street in Africa. So I think that he's very passionate, and this is when you hear him talk, you don't want him to stop. And he's done phenomenal things in York Region on diversity and race relations. So I think we need a boundary somewhere, someone like that, to kind of get us motivated and started, and maybe look in what other towns in York Region have done to go forward. with a program like ours, basically.
I have heard Ricky speak and absolutely agree that he has some great insights. My concern, however, is wanting to respect the boundaries and the framework that we're trying to work in within this organization. And in community organizations that I've worked with in the past, it can easily become a very circular group of comments when you start bringing in multiple groups. So my only concern is, I think we need to define what our agenda is first before we start soliciting outside opinions.
May?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Fiona. Did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't. I supposed to, but my mute was on.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just let Fiona go first and then May.
Thank you. I was just going to add to what Mark says, because my comment was going to be, I think it's important because this is Aurora's task force to really look at what are we lacking, what do we have, what's working, what's not. And once we know what we're trying to achieve, if we're looking for assistance to see how other people have successfully done it, then it would be great at that point. But I think it would be really great to assess what we have first.
May, did you want to make your comment?
Yeah, thank you. I think I totally agree with both of you, totally. My point was just being that, yeah, I think the most important thing is building our agenda. Of course, that's always going to be prioritized as number one. The only reason I suggested that was because we could get guidance in seeing how other towns have gone about with their initiatives. And then basically by that, because he gets invited to all the different committees, by that being, we still focus on what's important and core to our, agenda. And then, like I said, just to get the guidance of seeing what they've done and what the improvements have been for their towns. Not to say that it would be equally for what they have and what we want, but, maybe we could work on, like you said, Mark, building our agenda first.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And so on that note, why don't we spend tonight working out what that agenda or what our objective is. I'd like to know what everyone's objective was in joining the task force. What's your hopes and dreams, and what you hope to accomplish, and maybe we, with the approval of the chair, maybe we go around and talk about what we are, what our agenda was in joining the task force.
I don't know how to formally answer that, but I approve that idea, and I think it's a good one.
Good.
So maybe if we, I guess, go around and take turns, maybe describing what each of our individual goals are, how we would like to see the focus of this task force come about. Maybe I will start with Mark, if you want to go first.
Sure. And I'll share what I had put on my initial application, because I think that's a good reference point. I'm a 40-year resident of York Region. I'm a 17-year resident of Aurora. I grew up in Markham. I watched my parents, who were both teachers with TDSB, navigate racist constructs within our community and the education system while trying to provide a high quality of life for me and my siblings. As an adult, I chose Aurora to raise my family based on community values that seemed to mirror the Markham of the 80s that I grew up in. I was not disappointed. But like any fast-growing municipality, I watched Aurora's growth drive more diversity amongst residents in our town, which challenges the community to respond to growing racism which has to be dealt with by both residents and business owners. I have worked with community organizations since college, where I met Trish, working with one such organization, I really got most involved in advocating for anti-racism in York Region, really with the situation that occurred a few years ago with a school board trustee who was accused of, making racial statements towards a parent in the community. For me, the biggest challenge as a father, as a resident in Aurora, is it's a little heartbreaking that my daughter is still experiencing the same type of racism and level of racism that I experienced when I was her age so many years ago. So it's time for us to make a positive impact and make Aurora a great place for all of us to raise our families.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Thank you.
May, did you want to go next?
Sure, if you want me to. Thank you. My name's May Kamisa. I've been in Aurora for 35 plus years. I've came to Canada through my experience of living through apartheid, and experienced extreme culture shock when I moved here, because I came from not an integrated world, and when I came here, everybody was integrated, and so it was quite an ordeal to deal with. I was so wonderfully surprised at how welcoming it was for me here in Canada. I've been also involved with lots of different communities and committees. I think my purpose and goal is definitely similar to Mark's, is to see inclusion and diversity and education in Aurora, and see that wherever we move from, whether it be schools, local community centers, where we could make an impact. My kids were all brought up in this town. My husband's family was probably the first or second non-white family in this town in the 60s. Thankfully, my husband has no stories that he could tell you back then of any racism. In fact, I think we saw it later on in years as the town grew. My kids definitely experienced racism at school and in sports. And I think, just having to come from that world, I'd like to see some big changes. And this committee is so needed for Aurora. So, the initiative by Councillor Kim has just been phenomenal. And I couldn't be more happier than sitting on this board with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Fiona, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Noor. Wow, you guys have already explained so much that we can all agree with. I would add to that I've been in Aurora for 13 years, and I've been running a daycare for 13 years. For almost the time that I've been here, I had like a handful of racism or racist experiences. But one of my biggest thing that I want to hope that we can also accomplish in this task force is not just to have the name written down in the Town of Aurora newspaper somewhere that we had a task force and make it look like we actually did something. But I really hope that at the end of this, we will really see change. And for me, change in leadership. So I'm not really worried so much about what a child may do or a neighbor may do that is racist. I'm really so much worried about where are my leaders when I'm facing that, because at one point my daycare was being closed or threatened to be closed. Well, I was the one that's going to be closing, because the approach from the Ministry of Education, and when they came to my door, and the racist approach and the comments and just those belittling things that you don't need a rocket science to know that you were being discriminated against. And when I went to find my MP, Christine Elliott, or went to the mayor's office, the mayor was awesome and right away said, you know what, this shouldn't be happening. And if somebody's calling you a B, bitch, whatever in the park in front of kids, this is not acceptable. And if I have to scream on top of my voice with you, I will. But when I went to the office, nobody answered. So the counselor or the MPs, nobody was there to see you. So my thing is that it's very, very important that from a leadership perspective, our community know how our leaders feel about racism, about any form of discriminations or anything that makes anyone feel less than. As long as we know where they stand, then it's easier for us to know how to move forward. So in a nutshell, if I don't confuse you, I really, really want to make sure at the end of this, the entire community of Aurora know that race, anything that is discriminative, racist is not tolerated by our town or a council or a leader, and they're publicly declaring that, and not just in a task force that's going to expire in a year.
Thank you for that, Fiona. And Keenan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate everybody sharing their stories and experiences with racism in Aurora and York Region and the surrounding areas. I personally have lived here for about 20 years, and I didn't necessarily experience any racism myself, just like aggressive racism, until I got older, turning into like a Black man instead of like a Black boy. As a Black boy, it was more microaggressions, and like they would just have assumptions about me. But as I got older, it was like run-ins with the police for no reason. Been pulled over many times. I've had assumptions about me. I've been carded. And I honestly just want to make sure that like my goal is to make sure that like people like me will be able to just live in Aurora and live in surrounding areas without having any fear of persecution from other people in the community that should be protecting us.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Keenan. And Trisha?
Hey, thank you. Okay, well, I have been living in Aurora for about 17 years. And so during that time, just witnessed sort of the growth and development of the town, including the diversity. My story, I think, is a bit different from everyone's, just in the sense that I was not born in Canada. I came to Canada as a teen. And where I grew up, we were the majority. So I think coming here, if I did experience racism, I did not take it that way. It was more like they didn't like me because of something else, because that wasn't something that I necessarily grew up with. So just sort of mindset, coming into that. But over the years, I would say that we have been really blessed as a family living here, and the connections in the community that we have made, that, I would say that we haven't really experienced sort of an enormous amount of racism. So I deem that a blessing. Having been part of the Aurora Cultural Day, thank you, Councillor Kim, for advocating for that and bringing that to the town. It's really, really good to see how the town is embracing different cultures and how they come out to support that day each year that we've had that event. So I think my goal on this would just really be to continue to sort of raise the awareness. I think the more people know, the less they become afraid of something, right? With lack of knowledge and lack of information, there's huge fear. So I think just sort of bringing topics and displaying different cultures, I think that will be a huge part in sort of breaking down any barriers. And again, just being from a personal, just giving advice and recommendations on anything that town puts forward. But I'm really thankful that this has been brought to the table, and thanks for all who have been part of making it happen.
Thank you so much, Trisha. And I guess I'll go last, unless did I miss anybody? I think I got everyone. So, I mean, it's incredible to hear everyone's, oh, Councillor Kim, yes, your hand.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share my reason for participating in this task force. I think, growing up in the 70s, growing up in Regent Park and then close to the Jane Finch area, I experienced racism firsthand as a child and as a teenager. Growing up going to high school in Yonge and Eglinton, which was predominantly European descent. So it was, I think, probably being only the second Korean in the high school. It was pretty noticeable. And I didn't experience any racism beyond my teenage years. But then I noticed, after I got married, I moved into Oak Ridges, and I remember when my daughter was 3 years old playing in the sand. Another kid playing in the sand said, "I don't play with Chinese." And I was shocked because the parents of that other kid was just 20 feet away, heard everything, did nothing about it. And I was kind of shocked because it's been a while hearing that, and I didn't know what to tell my daughter, and she was kind of confused when she was 3 years old. And then as I moved to Aurora, you do sense the racism kind of in a very surreptitious way. But I think, in 2014, when I first ran for council, prior to this, believe it or not, I was quite introverted, and I just wanted to be by myself and keep to myself. And but I think one of the challenges of campaigning is that it forces you to do things that you're not normally used to, and knocking on doors. I had many cases where people would just slam the door on my face because they verbally said, "I don't vote for people like you." And so it's kind of heart-wrenching, and so I was very fearful of knocking on the next door because I didn't know who was going to open that door and what they were going to say. But each time I got something like that, I would just drive home and take a deep breath, take a couple of hours, and it was no different this time around in 2018. And given some of the response I got, I was actually quite surprised that I even got into council because the face-to-face confrontations didn't necessarily equate to me being on council. So it was very encouraging. So for me, as a personal testimony, you have to get out of your shell and get out of your fears, because when you are visibly different, you certainly have challenges with your self-esteem growing up, and you realize even as an adult you still have some of those issues. You think people of certain persuasion are better or smarter than you because that's the way you've been kind of brought up, or whether it's media or society. And so, and most recently, my children, they're 13 and 15. They came to me and said, when over dinner, that all the popular kids are white. And I thought, wow, even in this day and age, it's still like that. Like, I thought it would be different with my children's generation. So it just really, broke my heart that even my kids have to deal with the same things that I dealt with growing up, and I deal with as an adult at times. And so I thought, the task force would be, something that would be great to, bring people together, to, think about, what are we going to do in terms of educating Aurora? We can't do anything about other municipalities, but what can we do about educating and getting, people of color or other members of the diversity population more involved in the community? Because the only way that people can overcome that stereotype is when they get more familiar and they interact with those who are different. And so it's not just about educating those of, non-people of color, but it's also educating people of color that, hey, we need to get involved and contribute, because that's the only way that people will learn about us. Yeah. And so, that's the reason for me being here and wanted to create this task force.
Thank you for sharing that, Councillor Kim. And Mike and Tasha, I didn't mean to exclude you from the discussion. Is there anything that you guys wanted to share? Oh, and I see that Mark has written something in the chat. Let me just pull that up quickly. He says the playground. I don't know if I should read it out loud, but.
Since you brought it up, I was just sharing, Councillor Kim, that I have had, some of the experiences that you just described in terms of experiencing racism on the playground. When my daughter was 4 years old, it was actually the first time she had ever heard a racial slur was on the playground in Aurora. And, comments about all the popular kids are white, those are typical high school challenges of racialized folks growing up in Aurora. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. But before I guess share my part, Mike or Tasha, did you want to share anything?
I'll just say that I'm very pleased to be involved. Just even as the note taker, I generally don't do this. I am the GC and council secretary, but usually it's one of my staff who do this. But I really wanted to be involved. I think this is a great idea from Councillor Kim and all of council, and I'm looking forward to working with the group.
I agree, Mike. We're here to support this group and very interested in the outcomes and excited to how we can move this forward and change those systemic behaviors.
Thank you. And I hope I can speak on behalf of everyone when I say we're glad to have you and appreciate the support. So I guess for myself, I've lived in Aurora for almost my whole life, about 25 years now. So I grew up here, went to school here, and I'm still living here. And as a Muslim Arab woman, I've definitely experienced, my fair share of racism and discrimination, but I also recognize that I experience a lot of privileges in my life. I acknowledge the fact that I'm not the target of anti-Black racism or anti-Indigenous racism. And I think that it's really important for us to center the experiences of especially Black and Indigenous people in experiencing racism, because their lives are the ones that have been most affected and most at risk because of systemic racism. And I think in what I would like to see in this task force is similar to what Fiona shared around, some real action and some actionable change, especially in the, institutional system of the town of Aurora, that I hope that we can work to kind of look at policies and practices that are embedded in institutions, and understand how they are designed in a way that is inherently biased and racist. It might not be intentional necessarily, but that's the way that systems are designed in this country and in a lot of areas of the world. And we have to acknowledge that it is also the case in our town. So I would like to, within this task force, to work towards implementing anti-racist approaches to make sure that Black communities, Indigenous communities especially, are able to, I think, what Keenan shared earlier on about his own experience. I would like to see people to be able to go about their lives in a way that they feel safe, that they feel respected, and I guess that's my very inconcise way of sharing my perspective on that. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about anything that anyone shared, but I guess I did have a question with regards to the terms of reference, kind of related to what we're talking about now in terms of what we hope to do as a task force. I notice in the duties and functions section, it has a couple of, I guess, initial suggestions of what we will be doing within the task force. And I'm not sure if Mike or Tasha are able to expand on any of those points. But I was wondering if, I guess I have a couple of points here. I'm not sure which one to start off with, but let's say for the second point around identifying opportunities to increase engagement with people of color. I guess I lost my comment there. Sorry. Okay, so to identify opportunities to increase engagement with people of color. I was just wondering if you could clarify a little bit what is meant by increasing engagement with people of color. I think I have a sense of what that means, and my idea is that it might connect with what Councillor Kim was saying before. But if you could expand on that, that would be appreciated.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think with that one, I'll just say this was a draft that we put together to sort of facilitate a discussion. Certainly nothing set in stone here. Appreciate the comments that with the roundtable. I think that we definitely have stuff that we can use to go forward with the terms of reference to council. I think they would be supportive of it. And I will send the document book to the task force before it gets on the council agenda. But I think it's really just meant to be a broad, I guess, point in the document. And we took a lot of what we have in the terms of reference from what Councillor Kim's motion to the task or to council, as well as his comments when the motion was passed. And I think that's sort of where we got the idea that I guess just keep this broad idea of exactly I guess how it's worded, that for identifying opportunities to increase engagement with people of color. That could take many different forms, and I'm certainly not here to tell you which one it should or how it should happen, but I think it's important. And I certainly appreciate any further thoughts you have on that, if we could narrow it down, or if you're okay with the broad sense of it.
Mark, go ahead.
Is that on?
Oh.
One of the things that I wanted to bring to this task force is just a perspective that it's obvious that there's a lot that we can discuss around diversity within the community, within Aurora, but I also think that it's important that we examine diversity within the construct of Aurora itself, in terms of what is Aurora Town Council doing about ensuring the diversity of its suppliers in all aspects of the town's business. Where is the town of Aurora with regards to diversity within its hiring practices, within not just elected officials, but within administrative ranks as well. So those are things that I wanted to make sure we examine as well.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to you, Mark, so a couple of items that are still pending by staff. It's still under investigation. I put in a couple of motions over the last year and a half or so. The first motion was diversity in the workplace. I'm not sure exactly how I entitled it, but about a year and a half, 18 months ago, I put in a motion to investigate diversity hiring practices in the Corporation of Aurora. One of the things that that we have power or authorization in council in the municipal area is hiring practices. You know, it's kind of frustrating when you know our authority is limited to, you know, about snow plowing, waste management, things of that nature. And when I discovered that we did have control over hiring practices, it's not federal or provincial. We're certainly guided by their legislation, but who we hire and the hiring process is in control of the corporation. So I asked staff to investigate, and the report did come to council, I think early November. And so, we have designated a certain amount of funds to have a consultant help us in identifying our hiring practices, our composition, because we certainly need to know our staff composition in order to have a performance metric in terms of, where is the trend? Is our hiring practices in terms of diversity improving, or is it flatlining? So those are the things that's one motion that's under discussion right now that will come back to this task force early next year. And Mike Duran, our clerk, can forward you that report after this meeting so that you guys can be familiar with that. So this took place before all the George Floyd incidents, but it just took a while for that report to come back. And the other report that came before us this fall, and it'll come back to us early next year, is about the diversity mural, the O Canada mural on Yonge and Wellington. And May's husband, Raz, he lit the match for that idea, because that's something that when I run, I pass by it all the time, and it's something that I kind of notice, but it just kind of, like most people, you just look at it, but you don't really think that you can do much about it, so you just ignore it. But then Raz, May's husband, said to me, "Hey, you know what? I noticed that there's no people of color other than there is one Indigenous person there," and so that motion is there so that we have council approved a second mural where it will be more multicultural. So in terms of building out the process, in terms of who will go on that second mural, that process, as well as who should go on that mural, contacting other entities in Canada who can help us in terms of the process and identification. And that's something I believe will come to our task force early next year as well. So those are two big items that I think could be used as a frame of reference in terms of as an objective that's in the near term.
Thank you for sharing those points, Councillor Kim. And I think Mark has a point. Just before you go ahead, Mark, I know that Fiona messaged in the chat box asking a question about the comment. Was Mike able to answer your question?
Yeah, I just don't find it. I only have 2 attachments, but that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think it came in the email that we received from Samantha yesterday or the day before.
Okay.
But maybe it's something that we can send around another time just to make sure that everyone has a chance to review it.
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
I just wanted to comment, Councillor Kim, that I do have some ideas with regards to the mural. So when the time is appropriate, I'd certainly love to share those ideas with you.
Tasha, and then May.
And I just wanted to let you all know that when we get final approval for the capital project to retain a consultant to assist with the development of a diversity and inclusion strategy for the town, we will certainly have that consultant engage with this task force at the time, so that they can hear your perspectives and ideas and thoughts and identify The purpose is to do an equity audit internally, and identify gaps, barriers, opportunities, and then create an action plan going forward for at least 2 years to 5 years.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And May?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Harold, I think a great idea would actually be you can go and have a look at the mural that's at Lester B. Pearson Public School in Aurora. I was the cultural coordinator there for 13 years, and we put a quite diverse mural up in the entrance of the school. So that would be one place to maybe get some ideas from. Thank you.
Great. I guess just to go back to Tasha's point, I think that's actually a really important item to bring up, because it kind of relates to one of the comments that I had about the terms of reference as well, related to increasing public awareness of anti-racism. And I think we kind of talked about increasing awareness of diversity, both, I guess, in the general public, but also increasing the engagement of I guess, diverse members of the community in community. And I think the point that I just wanted to make around that was, I do think it's important to raise awareness of all of those items. But I think that, I guess, from my perspective, the more effective way of bringing about change is to increase the implementation of anti-racist actions, as opposed to just raising awareness about diversity and anti-racism and all of those items. So I think that there's probably a good opportunity, and it sounds like there is an opportunity within the consultant on diversity and inclusion to be able to conduct, a needs assessment and examine, institutional policies to see what changes need to be made at a systems level. And then hopefully I would like to see us be able to kind of work towards, informing some of those strategies going forward. So I just wanted to add in that point. Councillor Kim?
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Gilland and Mayor Marakis, who joined the call. So I just want to thank them for taking part.
May?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So how do we go about building an initiative on what we will be working towards? We need to get, I guess, started on what would be an interest for us to move forward as a committee. And how do we go about doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mike, just from your experience, can you help provide us with the first 10 yards and give us some parameters that you would suggest, and then we can, I think, go with the flow?
Absolutely. There's been some great ideas, certainly some good stuff that we certainly agree with, and this is basically the discussion is unfolding just how I thought it would with these ideas. I think prior to the next meeting, any issues that anyone wants to put on the agenda, please send me an email and we can talk about them. So there's individual things that you may think of, and we can certainly have a discussion. And we have some ideas at the staff level for initiatives that we want to bring to the task force. The mural is the obvious one that Councillor Kim brought up. Certainly, maybe even at next meeting, I'm gonna speak to the staff member who's involved with that to see where they're at with that planning. If the next meeting, I imagine, would be maybe around mid to end of January at this point. So if I'll throw it out there, see how they're coming along with that. And as Tasha mentioned, the diversity inclusion plan with the town will certainly come to this task force. Surprise me if it was only once. I bet there could be multiple trips to the task force. And so there's town initiatives, but I really encourage all of the members to reach out to me and say, listen, I saw this, and I want to talk about it. And I'll also say that I'm intending on looking at other committees. St. Catharines has a similar task force to what was established here. I've heard, I haven't spoken with my counterpart in Newmarket yet, but I've heard that the town of Newmarket has established a similar task force. So maybe there's collaboration opportunities there too. So I think there's a number of different directions that we can go. Yeah, so any one of those ways I would suggest going forward with for any of the task force members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so may I suggest, I mean, instead of, I mean, we could go all night. I'm sure we all have our experiences and our strategies and objectives, but perhaps, we can take that away in terms of what we've discussed. And, we could, email amongst ourselves, or if you have any thoughts, email Mike with some items that you think would be appropriate for our next meeting or the next couple of meetings. I thought Noor brought a great point in that instead of just focusing on education, because I've heard so much about education. Sometimes I had enough of education and let's just take action. And so I was writing notes, and Noor said, let's focus on anti-racist actions as opposed to just education. So what are some of those action items that we can take on at a municipal level? So an action plan would be great in terms of education. Education is still necessary. So how do we educate people and educate ourselves? How do we communicate this? And also we have a lot of assets within the town that we can use, or other stakeholders. So we have the Aurora Public Library, who is a center and a conduit for these types of discussions. We have the Aurora Cultural Center from an arts and creative perspective. Different races, they have a lot of creative talents. So we can certainly bring those talents through the cultural center medium. And there's a lot of other social and even athletic organizations that we can include in some of these discussions. So think broad. Just let's not think just in terms of 7, 8, 9 of us, but let's think about all the institutions within our municipality that can take part in this. We have Theatre Aurora. We have also private organizations, for profit and not for profit. We have what's that theater in Industrial Parkway North?
Marquee.
Yes, there's Marquee Theaters. There's so many organizations, private and not profit, that we can leverage as well. So let's have an open view as to how we can, educate and communicate as well as action plan. And we can give those ideas to Mike. But certainly I think by January, we'll, just those 2 items with regards to diversity hiring and the mural, I think that will certainly be on the agenda, and any other items that you guys can consider forward to Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be great if everyone has an opportunity to maybe. Oh, sorry. I think there's a bit of feedback. But if everyone has an opportunity to kind of, I guess, reflect on our discussion today and maybe come up with a few ideas for things that they might like to see the task force work on, and then maybe we can discuss it at our next meeting and see how we can bring those items, or see how we agree on those items and what we would like to focus on for the next little while of our work, and also what's feasible to work on. Yeah, I know we haven't heard too much from Trisha or Keenan, and I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to share any points that you might have.
I think I was sort of going to ask the same question as May did. It's just that, how do we move forward? How do we choose what we are going to sort of prioritize in terms of our next steps? And so that was one question that I had, because just action.
Mhm. Does everyone think that, I guess what Councillor Kim suggested around maybe sharing some suggestions for specific items that we can take on as a task force, and discussing those at our next meeting, do we think that that's a good way of moving forward, or are there any other suggestions for things that might work better? May? Oh, and Fiona next.
I think that's a great idea. I think we could maybe put some initiatives down on what we'd like to see. And then from there on, look at what we would like to move forward to, what is important, maybe to this task force. As you said, action speaks louder than words, and we need to get some action done. So I think that would be a great initiative. And then maybe go on to a vote to see what we work on or move forward with.
Mm-hmm. And Fiona, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So at some point, I believe there would be a notification from the town stating that they have approved my request for the proclamation for recognizing Black History Month in the town publicly. And that's coming up in February. So I'm sure that will be needing some planning. So hopefully we'll be able to have some dialogue about, I think Shelley, there's an amazing lady with the town that does all the cultural planning. I think it's Shelley, I don't remember if that's her name, that we would be able to discuss about aligning with her and planning to make sure, even though this might be on Zoom or it's not going to be, we don't know what COVID has in place, but it would be really, really also a great time if the mural come alive within the first time Aurora is going to publicly by the town declaring Black History Month official. So that would be great. The next thing I will add is that sometimes we think so big that we forget the little things that matter. After, as most of you already know, we have, I didn't really want to call it our Black community group, but the town was saying, why not call it that? Anyway, long story short is that there is a page where we are doing simple things, whether it's to reaching out to a neighbor, whether it's to, it does matter. So sometimes we've gone into the policies, the procedure, but we have not still connected with our neighbor. So I think it's very important that we don't miss those big things. And if you are part of the Aurora Black Community Facebook page, is to take part, is to, get involved, because this is how we get to break down the barrier, or we're uncomfortable to communicate, to share, and then we realize we have more in common than we thought. So from that perspective, while we're waiting for the big picture and to brainstorm what we have done tonight, is to see what are the little things that I've missed in my community. Did I really pass somebody and not say good morning? Because that makes a difference in making your community warm. People want to start listening to you and start to embrace you. It's not about I'm right, you're right. So the last point I will add is that somebody mentioned that the Newmarket has a task force. My issue with the Newmarket task force is it's only called the Anti-Black Task Force. And I think racism of any kind, discrimination of any kind, is not to be tolerated. So maybe we're going to be different than that. So just be aware of that once you take some feedback from the Newmarket task force.
May?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Kim, do we have an artist already for the mural? Is it a local artist?
No, we haven't chosen anyone yet. We're still in the initial stages of determining the process in terms of how we're going to pick the artist or artist. I suspect there's going to be more than one. I recommended that we try to pick a diverse group of people, including those are physically challenged or Black, Asian. So there's going to be more than one, but we're still in the initial stages, so we haven't determined that yet. But that's something as well that will be coming to our task force.
May, and I guess before you go as well, One point that I keep forgetting to mention is, I don't know if it's like inappropriate decorum around being called Madam Chair, but I'm okay with being called by my first name versus Madam Chair. It just
Okay.
sounds too formal.
Well, you're doing an excellent job, Noor.
Thank you. And please go ahead.
So I thought maybe what would be a good idea, Councillor Kim, is, and this is just a suggestion, that maybe we put in somewhat of a suggestion to the town to see what they would like to see on the mural. If, you know, an input from local people, local residents, to see who they would like to see on the wall. Maybe we could go from there. Or is there something that you've already have set in mind of what will be put on the mural?
No, I don't have any set idea or of who's going to be on the mural or who's going to paint the mural. None of that has been decided yet. So I'm still waiting for a staff report to give us a broader guidance, because I'm getting some emails from the I guess from the racialized community. I say racialized because apparently that's the new politically correct term for,
Yes.
for people of color,
Yeah.
and it's because we're not visible minority, because we're not the minority anymore.
Right.
But I know someone emailed me last week and said, "Well, do you have an Indigenous person on the committee?" And I said, "No, we don't." And they said, "Well, how can you call it a BIPOC committee?" And I said, "Well, it's not a BIPOC community task force, but it may have been mentioned once in air that it's BIPOC, but you're right, the I is missing in our task force, but no one of that group put their name in. And certainly, we want to reach out to all these groups, but I'm not sure how many people in every single group is living in Aurora, like whether it be Persian, Indigenous, South African, South Asian. I mean, there's so many groups within the group that, we could be criticized for not having a certain group, but when you only have 7-8 people, there's only so many people that can be covered. But all that is to say that everything's in the initial stages. And I think once we have a staff guideline and they let us know in terms of what municipalities had certain experiences, what groups are out there to help us in terms of identifying who the artists could be, identifying people of color that could go on the wall. But it's going to be all those suggestions, because we're going to have a public, we want public feedback. We want feedback from our task force. And we also want to know from not-for-profits in terms of they may know some names that we're not aware of, because, I don't know all the influential people of color that has contributed to Canada. So all that will be known early next year, but right now, nothing's set in stone.
Thank you.
Another kind of unrelated point that I wanted to bring up that just came in my mind was that I think it would be important as well for us to have a good understanding of the terminology that we're using, both in the terms of reference and how we kind of operate as a task force. I think, understanding the terminology of anti-racism, anti-Black racism, and kind of deciding on the framework that we want to use to guide our work will be really important. And I say that because I think to me and my understanding, I see a distinction between, or I guess a distinction, between anti-racism and diversity and inclusion related work. I think there is a little bit of a distinction to me, and I think it would be important for us as a group to have kind of a common understanding and identify kind of common goals around those terminologies to guide our work going forward. So that's just a side note that I did want to bring up. But I wonder if anyone else has any questions or comments to share. Mike?
I just wanted to note that Mayor Maracus has raised his hand. I think he might want to have
Oh,
a comment for the task force.
Yes, please go ahead. Sorry, I did not notice that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And can everyone hear me? I just want to make sure
Yeah.
everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. I first off, I just want to apologize. I was intending on being at the meeting first thing to welcome everyone. Unfortunately, I got caught up in a meeting with the Premier in regards to the pandemic. So I did want to apologize to everyone for not being here for the beginning to welcome you all. And I want to congratulate you, Noor, on being nominated as the chair and put in as the chair, and also Mark as the vice chair. I think both of you will do a wonderful job working through this task force and what we need to do. And so, I did want to answer a few questions from what I've heard. Fiona, absolutely, Black History Month proclamation 100% is happening. I just want to let you know that that's as far as how we're going to go about doing it, whether it's virtual or how we're going to, the logistics of it, we're going to work on that. But 100%, I wanted to confirm that is happening, and we will be making a proclamation from the mayor's office in regards to that. And I know that some have talked about the Newmarket task force as well. And yes, there is a bit of a difference with it. And we were looking initially at some collaboration with them and ways that we could kind of work together. And we did see that there was a bit of a difference. And so we decided at this time to kind of keep everything separate, but there may be an opportunity in the future that we can collaborate. And then to the other, I guess, overall comment that I believe that this is a really important task force. When Councillor Kim said to me that, we need to do this, I absolutely agreed with him. And, this is really, really important. There is systemic racism within all communities, our community as well. And the only way we're going to be able to affect change is by taking action. And I'm glad to hear that you're all discussing about taking action and utilizing actionable items instead of just discussing it, because as Councillor Kim mentioned, it's past education. It's past just explaining it. It's time to take action. And I think that we in Aurora need to be leaders, but ultimately it can't be just about Aurora. Racism doesn't end at our borders. It goes beyond our borders. And so we need to first look at our community and then build upon that and grow and affect change right across the board. And once we're able to do that, then we'll have a community, we'll have a province that where everyone is truly equal, where we're truly a diverse and inclusive community. And so I look forward to seeing what comes out of this task force and the work that you guys do. And by all means, I'm here at all times to help, to reach out, give me a call. I'm here to do anything that I can to make sure that we can move forward in a positive direction and make effective change. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I was on mute. Were there any other comments from the group? Mike?
Just to summarize, I think, this is quick 90 minutes. I can't believe how fast I went by. We got some really good discussion. I think Tasha and I have some ideas on terms of reference at this point, at least the terms of reference. And I'll send that document once we've taken a look at it. I'll probably send it out about mid next week to the group just to solicit some feedback, see what everyone thinks. And then, like I said, it'll go forward to council in January, but I don't want to let the terms of reference, because it won't be approved until the end of January. And I think we can meet before that to continue on the discussion, and especially if items come forward, maybe we can talk to some staff about something with the Black History Month and things we can do with that. So anyways, I just wanted to summarize discussion. I thought it was good, and we definitely have what staff need to move forward.
Thank you.
Great. And I know that we discussed kind of sharing some suggestions in the meantime before our next meeting. So do we want like a timeline for that, or is there a time that you would like to have those suggestions in by Mike and Tasha?
Not necessarily for me, Noor. I think when they come to your mind, feel free to email them. Day, night, doesn't matter to me. Like I said, I think we're going to shoot for middle of January for the next meeting, and so I mean, of course, before then would be nice, but no real rush at this point for those.
Okay. And May has her hand raised.
Thank you, Noor. What about setting a day, a specific day and time of month that we will be meeting? Is that something that you plan to do, Mike, or is this as it comes about?
I think, we'd like to meet monthly, at least for now, to get this off the ground, get moving in the right direction. I think if Wednesday nights are work for people, we can keep going with that. We don't usually have any council or GC activities on Wednesday nights. So yeah, ideally we'd pick a third Wednesday of the month or something like that. And I think we'll try and set that up for the next meeting and then continue on after that on that schedule. And we'll be in touch to make sure that that everyone is able to make it.
Thank you.
And if there isn't any more discussion, there is a motion in the agenda. I'll just read it out so that the task force is aware that the memorandum regarding proposed anti-Black racism and anti-racism task force terms of reference be received, and that the anti-Black racism and anti-racism task force comments regarding proposed terms of reference be received and referred to staff for consideration and action as appropriate. So Noor, if you wanted to seek a mover and a seconder for that.
Sure. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the motion on the floor for discussion? Moved by May, and I believe that was seconded by Trisha. Would staff like to provide an overview of the item? I think that you already did that, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. I think,
Okay.
just what we've talked about, I think we weren't too far off with the terms of reference that we presented, but we're certainly going to add to them. The one that's really stuck out for me is real actionable items. That'll certainly make an appearance in fees and functions. And then I'm going to add a bit more to the purpose. I think we can expand on it there. And other than that, you will see the document Wednesday or Thursday next week for your thoughts and comments.
Great. Does the committee have any questions or comments on that? All right, if there are no further comments, I'll call the vote. So all in favor? I guess I also vote. All right, and I guess that means there aren't any opposed, but are there any opposed? Okay, so that carries.
Excellent. So at this point, it would just be a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn? So that was moved by Mark and seconded by Councillor Kim. All in favor of adjourning? Any opposed? All right, that carries. So the meeting is now adjourned, I guess. I didn't think I would ever say that because I'm not a judge, but